Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our debrief of the Missouri Curriculum and Instruction Summit. My name's Valerie Montgomery, and I'm joined with some other Step Up staff members. If everybody wants to introduce themselves.
I'll start, girls. My name's Jessica Gray, and I'm the lead literacy consultant with Step Up.
I'm Lindsay Bond, and I'm a consultant with Step Up.
I am Sarah Rail, and I'm a trainer and consultant with Step Up.
Thanks, guys. And so this morning, we just wanted to take some time to debrief the conference that we just put on. Before we get into it, I just want to share that the purpose behind the conference was really to provide a space and an ecosystem for Missouri educators that really focused on curriculum and instruction. And also, we wanted to really highlight the great things that are happening within our state. Here are some fun photos of the day. We had, let's see, about 130 participants, and that represented 43 school districts from around the state, which is really exciting for our first conference. So thank you to all of those who attended. It was a really fun day and a day full of learning. So, oh, and of course, thank you to our sponsors who were there exhibiting and helping to put this on. Here are our keynote speakers, David Williams from Hancock Place. He did an excellent job. And then Shauna, the founder and president of Step Up, who also did an excellent job. So we're just going to kind of talk through some discussion questions and share our takeaways with people who maybe attended or folks who didn't get to attend but are curious about what took place. So I'm just going to read this question out and then we can kind of popcorn around our responses. So, what was one idea, strategy, or tool from the conference that shifted your perspective as a consultant? And how might it influence you as you work with other districts or the districts you already work with?
I can go first. So I was in one of the rooms all day long for the breakout sessions. And so Amber Husky did a presentation and she really was talking to instructional coaches. And sometimes that can be a really hard task in school districts because they get pulled for different things. But I really like the part that she talked about, just like in the classroom where we have to differentiate with students. Also, teachers are at different stages. We have brand new teachers that's more at the stage that they're in, and then we have the refinement stage where teachers that are ready to learn and implement new things. And so you really, to be able to coach appropriately, and this kind of hones in on what we do as consultants, we need to think about that as we are working with our teachers and to be able to coach them effectively. So I thought that she did a really great job. She had ideas for instructional coaches and things like that.
Great, thank you.
I love that idea of we differentiate for students, but we don't always think about differentiating for our teachers too, and that they all have different needs. And that is so true in our work because we know when we go and even do CMT training, some people have more Google experience than others. Some people have more curriculum experience than others. And so it's a good reminder that we have to have that flexibility with even our teachers that we want with our students.
I think that kind of fit in also in one of our trainings, or I was in a breakout room too. And so it was Jonna K. Sutton, and she brought in like the working genius and how with your team, different people have strengths and weaknesses. And it's good to kind of have a variety of those on your team and also to be mindful so that you can find the part that you love. And she was bringing up like find the joy in the part. It doesn't mean you like everything about your job, but do you like this part of it, and how can you bring that joy into different areas and how you can do that for your staff members as well. And so I just thought, well, that's something interesting. Even going in as a consultant and going into different schools, you can kind of see, well, this person likes this person doesn't like this part. So how can, we kind of connect with them and help them feel that success for that day and something that's not their strong suit.
Jess, you've got one?
I think on the next slide, what
Oh,
Lindsay was talking about too, if you don't care to go to the next one,
sure.
Val, we had some of our other consultants and teachers that were in attendance share some of their ideas too. But what Lindsay was saying went right along in with talking about Shauna's keynote speech and really about like being the light for others and finding that joy in what you do and remembering why did we choose to stay, when so often we always think about the why we went into teaching, but why are we choosing to keep coming back year after year, which I think is such a good thought for leaders and coaches and to help instill that thought and that light for their teachers in their building and just bringing back the why do we come back every day and what's the point. And so I loved that part about that connection that I saw there. Some other ideas that people had that they thought were great and stood out to them were understanding how to look at data. We had a lot of sessions on data and making decisions about differentiation and scaffolding. And we had some too about that shift in the state testing. I know we had a session with Sean Bates, where he kind of talked about assessment, how it's going to shift a little bit and align better to instruction. And then, of course, David Williams, our other keynote, having that model. Such a great example for CBE in schools. And if you're listening to this call and you've not experienced David Williams and his school at Hancock High, we definitely encourage you to try and work getting in your staff to go tour his school. They have tour dates and things set up. And he's just such a great example for how that you can implement these ideas and it can be done. So it's pretty mind blowing, the data he shared with his school district.
And I
Yeah,
like
thank
how
you.
he's so willing to, talk to other admin. I actually was on a call this week with one of our new clients that's coming on that came to the conference, and she said, oh yeah, she says, I've already reached out to David several times and asked questions. And she's gotten responses. So I think that's wonderful.
Yeah, I love that. The willingness to share.
I was really like I was just so impressed by the people that we had brought in that came to our conference and they were presenting, because at the end and even like at the beginning and throughout they would say, if you have questions, email me. Like I might not be able to get right back to you, but I will. Like I want to share, I want to help. And so the connections that were made throughout, I was just really impressed through, like, they were so excited to share what their district was doing and what's working for them. And
Yeah.
participants were
I'm
coming up and they were saying, like, are you serious? Like you'd share this, or, like,
Mhm.
yeah, can I get your email for sure? And I just loved that part of it, seeing those connections being made.
Yeah, well, Lindsay, thank you for saying that because I think that was really one of our intents in the whole having the conference. And for those of us who've been in like either IC or admin, it can be incredibly lonely, especially if you're in a small district where you may be the only one who is, you have to make a decision all by yourself. And so that was part of our intent was to really like break down that isolation and give people an opportunity to network. And also, Jess, I think it was your idea to have that shared folder where like everybody can have access to the resources, which like you may not need that resource immediately, but it's now you've got like this access to this library and you have access to those people. Um, I've received a few different emails asking for David's, well, it's in there now, but for his keynote presentation because it did have so much powerful data in it. So, um, yeah. All right. So, next question. So, when we designed our breakout sessions, we wanted to create these pathways. um, this goes back to like, what do Missouri educators need support in? And it was personalized, competency-based education, guaranteed viable curriculum foundations, instructional innovation, and instructional leadership. So these pathways, they may shift at our next conference. It kind of, we'll see which way the wind blows. It may stay the same. Um, but of these four, which topic or session most aligned with your current needs that you're seeing in the districts that you support?
Well, something that I did like is that how we had it organized and how that was like laid out for like for people who came to the conference, they were sitting there mapping out who in their district was going to each area. And I
Love
thought
that.
that that was amazing because they weren't like, oh, we're all going to go to this one because we know each other. They were breaking out to get as much as they could. And then they were kind of meeting in between the sessions. So I just loved that part. I thought that that was really beneficial. And I thought that they thought it was beneficial too.
Well, that kind of goes back to what like Jonna K. Sutton was saying about, find your joy, find your interest, and like let the person become the genius there.
And I think they really liked the notebooks because I mean, they were taking notes. People had their computer, I mean, they had their computers up, but they were, I mean, like making notes and then, pulling that out in the hallway and sharing. And I don't know, I got excited for that part.
I had
That,
several people talk about the notebooks and
Yes.
they
oh,
loved
really?
that they were blank pages. I had so many people say, "This is amazing. I love blank page notebooks." So
Oh,
I thought that was neat to hear. I know that's
it's the little things,
feedback.
right?
It's the fun part about conferences, right? All the swag and all the things. I love this graphic too because we got to talking about at the beginning, we want to differentiate for our teachers and thinking to our districts when they're structuring PD days. A lot of them are kind of drifting from that traditional sense of everybody's doing the same thing. And if you are able to structure in your district your PD day something like this, where you have maybe one of your colors is for curriculum foundations, you have new teachers that aren't sure of their curriculum and they need more time, or maybe you've got teachers that really need to focus on classroom management, that could be a session topic where you're having lead teachers lead that. Back 5, 6, 7 years ago when I was in the classroom, there was a really like hot movement for trying to think of the term that it was called. It wasn't open ed, but it was something similar to the idea where you could pick your own sessions, and our district would break out on our half day PD days, and everybody would just kind of volunteer something they were passionate about or that they did really well, and they would run the session. So some people might have an IXL session, or you might have a Google session, or you might have, this is how I structure my classroom management. And it just was really fun to go to different things and see the people in your buildings, because those are your people who know what's going on, or the people in your buildings. We don't always have to have outsiders come in, which I think that was what was so great about our conference, was we had people doing the work, doing the things that they're talking about and living that life. And sometimes we think we need these outside people to come in, but really we've got the best people under our roofs, people teaching our kids. So I see this graphic and I think, gosh, what a great way to structure your back to school PD. Let your teachers choose what they're going to do.
That's such a great way to build teacher leaders, which may then lead to, admin roles or I
Sure.
mean, just having those leaders in your building and then also to differentiate. So like you
Mhm.
said, we don't all need the same thing, especially when the makeup of a staff varies so much between, years of service and understanding of curriculum, all these things. So, um, Sarah, anything you'd like to add?
Um, Two of my speakers really hit on the data part and how many times is data not used effectively to really drive purposeful instruction. And so one of the speakers, Dr. Jennifer Renegar, you could tell she loved data. I mean, there's just those people out there that loves those things and has things that she's created. And she shared all those, and like several admin were there afterwards asking her. And again, like we've said, she's so willing to help others, but she really talked about, bringing that data to the teachers and those data teams and how to analyze it and where to go from there. So I thought that was really good because that is some things that I've noticed in the school districts I've worked with, that is definitely a need. So
Jennifer is amazing. I've gotten to listen to her speak a couple times, and she is a wealth of knowledge. If you're on the call and you're like, I need help with data, Jennifer is who we would send you to, because she does. She is great and does great, great things for her district.
Just remind me, what district is she?
Ro- oh, it's Republic or Rogersville, but I want to say it's
Okay.
maybe neither one of those. Jennifer,
Sorry,
if
I
you're
put you on the
watching this,
spot.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I know it's one of those. I'll find out for sure. I'll look it up just to make sure.
Is she at Republic schools? I'm
I
like,
was thinking it was Republic, possibly.
says
It's an
current
R. I know
guidance
it's going to be an
assessment
R.
specialist for
Yeah.
Republic schools. So yeah, it is
Yep.
Republic.
Okay. I was like, I knew it was an R one, but then I was like, oh, is it Republic, Rogersville? There's so many with R's, but Republic.
So it's okay. So we've got some more comments. Ripping off the Band-Aid approach. That was from David Williams, right? And I
Yes.
remember when he said that, because so on a sort of personal note, the description that David Williams gave of his Hancock Place is very much the same type of school that I was at for 10 years in Kansas City. And it was interesting to hear him say this because we actually had the opposite motto. It was go slow to go fast. But it sounded like when he described the culture um, of it sounded as if students, parents, teachers, that everybody was, there was a sense of urgency of like, let's make some changes. And so for me, when I was listening to his keynote, that was like an aha moment for me of like, we can't afford to go slow when you're talking about a child's, they only get 1 year as a second grader or as a 12th grader. And so these like tiny little incremental changes, they're really not effective for students. So yeah, that really resonated with me when he said that.
Agreed. I love the rip it off. So many times we think about initiatives that we're trying to implement in our buildings and we don't want to overwhelm teachers and do too much. But I think really what I took away from David was what's the most important thing or the thing that's going to make the most change for us. And we don't want to slowly implement that. We got to do it. And he was really talking about that shift in competency-based learning. I mean, that was really his big tote and his big talk about but his first part was all culture shift and how did they change the culture and do all those things with their staff. So I love that, ripping that band-aid off. Then we've got another comment too about Pilot Grow's writing journey. Lindsay Leonard's fantastic. We love having her on our calls and having her as a client. I didn't get to listen to her session at the conference, but I've seen her present about her writing journey, and she is also a wealth of knowledge. But she's another great one to connect with if you're watching this replay. If you want to change writing for your district, she has worked with Sue, one of our lead instructional design consultant, and Sue's fantastic too. But it's amazing to see the transformation in writing building wide for her and all the excitement that her kids have brought to writing. We know if you're teaching, especially, I would assume it's the same for high school, but lower elementary, writing can be a struggle. And we often talk about how difficult it is for us to help kids write, and they really changed the game with that and that mindset. So I love Lindsay, and her talking about her staff is wonderful. It's good to listen to.
I gotta listen. She was in my room.
Yeah.
I absolutely loved her presentation because you could see the joy she had of sharing how much work and how great her staff was, and the joy they now have to share with their students, and how scary writing was for them to begin with, and now that they love it. And just the pride that she had, not only for her students, but for her staff, was just amazing to watch. Like that was one of my favorite ones.
Did she show any of the videos of the kids explaining their work?
There wasn't time for
Oh,
that. But
okay.
she had broke it down with she showed our little video at the end just to
Okay, the
she
reel
was
from
like,
social media.
yes, because
Okay.
she said, I just think this is so cool. And just how excited she was through the whole thing. I think she got everyone excited about it, where writing is something that sometimes we think, sometimes in districts are like, all right, we don't really have time to focus in on that. But then when they realize, oh, we do need to focus on that, they were
Yes.
like, maybe this is something we could do. It seemed, doable. So
I'll tell you guys, I'm living that as the mom of a soon to be third grader. I am feeling the painfulness that is writing to my son. And I'm just like, oh, I just keep thinking about Lindsay and about the kiddos at Pilot Grove. And so yeah, that is very real. Okay. Next question. Were there any tools, frameworks, or models shared that you think districts could easily adopt or adapt?
Um, Lindsay and I both got the privilege to listen to Sheila Littlefield. She's from Cassville. She was one of their instructional coaches, and she's going to be the new principal, I think, of their intermediate building. Sheila is also a wealth of knowledge and absolutely fantastic, but she shared how that they have kind of they went through our CMT process and organized all their curriculum and their standards and knowing when they were happening. But she showed districts, I just think, the most applicable way to help your teachers connect that to their day-to-day and week-to-week learning. And I took a screenshot of her slide deck because I wanted to share this with people, and I'm sure she would share it with you too if you emailed her. But oh my goodness, just showing her teachers how to connect. We're looking at our units of instruction on their CMT and then breaking that down week by week and linking all those important things in, showing anchor charts that go along with those things. All of their assessments are linked here for their grade level bands, their CFAs, their pre and post test, anything that they need. The teachers can come to this really kind of a unit plan guide that's a week by week. And she's got all their important things linked in there so that it's ready for their team planning meetings. It's ready for teachers coming in. And I just think, oh my gosh, if I was a brand new teacher, this would be gold. I mean, this would just be so helpful to understand the standards. She's got our MAT tools linked in there, priority standards, as well as other documents that they're utilizing and resources you can see on this one from different places that they use to help teach those things with and those standards. And I just love how it's broken down by the standard. And this is the standard focus we've got this week. And here's how we're teaching it. So just a great way to think about that. There were lots of people taking notes in that session. Lindsay can attest to that. And Lindsay may have some other great points from hers, but I just thought she was wonderful.
I liked that she took not only the curriculum piece and, breaking it down and why we're doing this, but they also went through their data. And so if you see, like, I love that you put this part in, there's that FYI, because they're saying, hey, like, this is where we were low. This is the lowest of the year. And that's right there on their notes.
Mm.
And I loved how she also talked about like getting in there, discussing with the team, talking with the teachers, making sure that everyone was on the same page. And then when you go and you talk to her at the end, she's like, it's still a lot of work. Like it's a great process, but it's doable. But we can't wait to keep going through and making it better. Like it wasn't a, hey, we did this, we're done. We're still making it better. Like how can we, help our kids the most? And so I just loved that about her. And
Mhm.
she would share anything. She she was like, "Oh, you want this?" I said, "Yes,
So
I think
She's
everyone."
very humble. She's very
Yes,
humble,
very
which I love
humble.
about her. Yes.
Yes.
So does she created this for the teachers or the teachers work on
It
it
was
too?
both. I think she was an instructional coach and they
Okay.
kind of worked on those things together. But I think she broke down and linked those standards, those MAT tools in for them and those things. And they just go through during their plan meetings and they really dig in and look at that. And
This is amazing.
oh, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And like Lindsay said, linking in that data piece, we just talked about that a few minutes ago of how do we use data appropriately and what can we do? And this is a great way to draw from that. Like, hey, this standard was one we did not score well in. We need to make sure that we're doing something different. And then linking the item analysis in there so their teachers have that to reference and look at. Those documents so often get lost in the air, right? As we're teaching and getting in the middle of things in the thick of it throughout the year. So she was just such a great resource.
Yeah, this is such like a powerful roadmap for the week to week or the day to day of
Mhm.
how to approach this stuff. And it blends that standard, the data, the instructional strategy. This is really great. Okay. Sorry, did anyone else want to share on that question? Or should we just go to the next one? Okay, we'll go to the next one. What ideas or practices from the sessions could directly support district-wide initiatives like MTSS, SBG, or curriculum alignment? We just love our acronyms.
We do.
Not everybody all at once. Come on.
And I had so much to share from before. Um, Rebecca, one of our consultants, she did a session. I didn't get to listen in, but I've heard her speak on this, and she talked a lot about the competencies and how that we blend those in with our learning, and how they can really be a roadmap for students, and how they're just thriving throughout their day, and the things that they can do during school hours. And it was just, she's always such a powerful knowledge reference um throughout that. And I had the privilege of doing a session on standards-based grading, and kind of talking about the model we've structured for districts in the phases to break that apart. And a lot of comment I got was, I'll just talk briefly about what I heard from Tom Gusky on standards-based grading at STL and STL. But he talked about how standards-based grading, that these grade cards are a communication tool. And I hadn't thought about it like that before then, but that was a really powerful piece I got some feedback on, was, wow, that's such a great idea, or knowledge to take from, is that it's not just a grade card. We are communicating using this tool with students, communicating how they're doing. Students should be able to access and articulate how they're doing with standards-based grading. They should know where they are and how they're moving, and all of those things. And I thought that was just such a great takeaway from him that I included into my session. A lot of our standards-based grading phases glean from his research on the subject. And so he's just such a wealth of knowledge too there. But I thought that was just such a great takeaway, that sometimes we get so hung up on the grade, but really, what is the purpose of standards-based grading? And it's that we have to be able to communicate. Students should be able to articulate where they are with this in terms of the standard and how they've mastered those.
Well, and you're also making me think, I'm probably going to butcher this, but in his keynote, David Williams spoke about one of the shifts that they made, um, and this had a lot to do with that culture shift in the beginning, was separating academic grades from behavior grades. Because like really taking a deeper look at grades, like the traditional A, B, C, D, and kind of looking at it under a microscope and like, what does this actually represent? And making that shift, which is really difficult because that's how most of us went to school, and it's just ingrained in our brain that the grade represents your aptitude and your intelligence, when in fact getting zeros on work really just tells us that you're not turning in the work. It doesn't tell us how you're performing on that standard.
I don't think you butchered that at all. I think that
Okay.
was a great articulation of that, because that was, as you were thinking that zero, what's the consequence for not doing the work? And then David Williams' mind at their school, their philosophy is, it's doing the work. That's the consequence for not doing your work, is actually doing it. So and a lot of times with just giving kids zeros, that's the consequence, and they don't care about having a zero or a bad grade. It just doesn't motivate them. But if their consequence is still having to do the work, they're going to do the work. So I thought that was great. One of their district-wide initiatives, though, is this idea of tutoring, and they provide tutoring transportation, which I think is just amazing. And I know that that can be hard for a lot of districts to implement, but I think the way he phrased it was, this is what we're prioritizing transportation wise. And so I think really, if you're able to look at your budget and say, can we prioritize transporting kids home from tutoring? I think they said they had two sessions, maybe they had a 4 o'clock bus and a
5 o'clock
bus, and kids were able to stay after school, which I think is huge. A lot of our issues with getting kids to tutoring is that transportation piece. So I loved hearing him talk about that.
I also liked like something that he kept bringing up is he would say, like, we're using, it's kind of like maybe like this method, but we're using the parts that work for us. And I sometimes think in districts we
Mm.
get so focused on, hey, we're bringing in this method into our district, so we're going to do it, and we're going to use it, and we're going to do it all of, all parts of it, even if these parts aren't working for us. And I loved that he was like, hey, like confident enough in being, hey, we like this part of this, so we're going to use it, but we're not going to use this part because it's not going to work with our kids. And so we're going to take from this area, and we're going to, like when he was talking about like PBS, he was like, we use that. We don't use it with like fidelity, but we do use it like because these parts work for our students. And I think that that's a really good idea too. I mean, sometimes it can be bad, but for like how he was leading them and what they were going for, and they knew what they were working towards, I really liked that idea. And then like the curriculum alignment piece, Melanie Rucker just kind of, in her session, she brought up And I really liked this takeaway with her. She's the principal in her and she has like 6 teachers, I think that's what she was saying, in each one of her grade levels. And she's very involved in how they collect their assessment piece. And so like after they test, they turn in their assessment data to her. And so she had forms so that she could, be a part of those discussions. And so I really liked the work that she's doing, because that has to take time to, I mean, they collect the data and they present it to her, and then she puts it all together and shares it with them before they have their meetings. And then one of the things that she talked about was, as a leader, it's really important to give the data, because you can't really argue with the data piece. And so she gives the data, and then she steps back and she lets her teachers, they work through what that means. And I thought that was really like a vital piece as a leader, to know that, hey, I can give the data and I might have a lot of great ideas, but I want to know what they know, because there's a reason that they're in the classroom and there's a reason they're part of this team, and giving them that like personal takeaway. So I thought that was a really important idea to share.
Yeah, that's great. Giving teachers that autonomy, and that it kind of comes back to that John Hattie, the collective efficacy, right? And like believing that sometimes teachers can get into this cycle of like that what the admin does to us, right? Like,
Mhm.
but it's this collective, we're all in this together and we have the power to change it. Were there any? Okay. I wasn't sure if there was any responses from others who weren't here. So our next question is, did you hear any language or phrasing from presenters that you think could help simplify complex concepts? That's a great question.
I was thinking about this, maybe doesn't really simplify a complex concept, but as Lindsay was talking about David Williams' session just a second ago, he had a slideshow of maybe a copycat. Did he have a picture of a cat? He had a picture of some animal, but his premise was, don't be a copycat, because what works for our district, that may not work for you. You have to take that and make it your own. And I loved that, because I think so often we do forget all of our districts are so unique. Like, there are research and things that we can all bind behind, right? That we know is best practice for students, but we have to have that ability to look at it through the lens of how are we going to make it work for our kids? Because our kids, my girls, they go to Marion C. Early. Those kids are going to have a different reaction to things, and they're going to be different than the kids in Springfield. And Springfield's going to have something different than Republic, because you just have a different makeup of kids and staff. And so I loved the idea of, take these ideas and make them your own. Like, you can take what we have done and really make it work for your district, which I think we often forget that. Sometimes we see really, really great things at these sessions and we're like, oh my word, I want to do that. But sometimes those things end up failing because they don't work. We don't make them work for our people. So it's not really a complex concept. I love this one too. I was trying to think about some other sessions I heard
And
some
I
big
might be
language
off, and
from.
I don't know exactly which. Maybe it was him. I'm not sure. Was there one and they said embrace the suck? And I was
Yeah,
like,
it was
Mhm.
him.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was
Yeah.
like, you're right. Like, 'cause, when
Yes.
anything is complex, I mean, the best way to do is just to embrace it. And how I think I was like, I thought it was him, and he said that, and I thought that's really good advice. Like, you kind of just have
And
to
they give,
of it.
don't he was the one that said they give an award, right? For the
Yes.
the person that sucked the most, the staff member that
Yes.
sucked the most during the month.
You tried
And
something
he
new and
said
it didn't work.
they tried, but they tried something new, and I loved that. I was like, man, that's such a good idea, because you're bringing that awareness to, I see you trying, and I'm proud of you. And I just think that that's so fun, just a fun way to really notice your staff. But yeah, embrace the suck. Love it.
The word I'm thinking of, it's not anything new, but clarity. We talk a lot at Step Up, and us consultants talk about John Hattie a lot. But the Joplin, 2 presenters that was there from Joplin, Libby Bird and Hannah New, they really talked about our MAT tools and how they use that, but just how to bring clarity to not only their teachers, but then the students need clarity as well. So I really liked how they presented and talked about making the meaningful instruction and using our mat tools, especially that tier 2. And they're doing a great job because their sped teachers are actually using our tools a lot. So it was great to hear that. So their sped teachers are moving more towards the standards based, and the mat tools have really helped them. So clarity is my word, I guess. It's not new, but always a good one.
Yeah, and
I love
it's
it.
super important. That seems to be a real barrier for teachers. Oops, let me go back here. Okay, so Jess, you want to talk about this one?
Oh yeah. So we had some feedback. We'd sent this survey out with these questions, and one of them was the purpose of standards-based grading. I think I already talked about this. The purpose of standards-based grading is that the grade card's for the students, and it's a communication tool and should not be a surprise. And how that, a lot of times when we give a summative, what happens? We get that data back and we're like, oh, they did terrible. And that we should know going in how well students are going to do on an assessment. And the students should too. The students should know I'm ready for this or I'm not. And so I love that communicate thinking about standards-based grading in terms of communication. We're really communicating with where you are in your knowledge of learning.
And you're making me remember, didn't David Williams talk about how with their report card, it only showed where they were now, not where they were before? Am I making that up?
I I don't remember that exactly, but I do. He did talk a lot about how that they improved their grade and like the things that they are doing to shift that grade. And it's not an average. It's they have the autonomy to redo it and they have that choice. They get
Okay,
a
that
two. You can go back and do it again. I think there are some things they require the kids to try again on, depending on the scores that they get. But I they really work in their they have, which I have not seen a lot of. They really have like an RTI time for, I can't remember what they call it. They have a name for it based on their, I want to say their mascot, but it's a time where students can pick which
how
class that they're going to.
was
Pals,
it
maybe.
Howl?
Howl time. That's what it is. And they get to go to teachers that they're struggling in or that they know that they didn't do well on an assessment or they need to redo an assignment. Teachers can tell students when to come to them and their teachers work really closely together because a lot of times our students who are struggling in multiple areas, but they have a good system of communication with their teachers on, hey, can I take this kid today? You can have him tomorrow. And they spend a lot of time reteaching and making sure kids are getting what they need to meet those standards.
I also liked that when he was talking, and it doesn't have to do about standard-based grading, but something that I loved that they share the teacher practices with their students. And so they're making the students accountable and explaining why. So this isn't just some silly thing your teacher's having you do. This is why we're doing it. This is the research that backs it. And like, so jump on board with us, like be a part of this team. And I was like, wow, that's a big takeaway.
That was huge. Didn't he say that whatever PD the teachers receive, they give it to their kids? Yeah,
Yeah.
that was awesome.
And I thought,
Hadn't really ever thought about it like that before.
if they put it with that and then they put that with that standard-based grading, just
Mhm.
I don't know. I was just like, wow, that has to be so beneficial for those kids, the conversations that they have to have, and then it makes sense of the why. Because
Mhm.
a lot of, middle school, high school kids, I'm in elementary, but definitely middle school, high school, some of the buy-in is because they don't see the point, they don't see the reason. And to give them research, you can't really fight the data. Giving
Yep.
them that as like young adults, we're treating them like young adults.
Yeah, and what an important way to shift the culture of, just giving kids a voice and the autonomy to be part of their school. Well, okay, so as we wrap up, I just kind of want to bring us back to what our original purpose was in having this conference was really to host a space that we could, as Missouri educators, that we could focus on curriculum and instruction, and that we could empower Missouri educators and shine a spotlight on all the wonderful things that people are doing right here in our state. It can sometimes be difficult to navigate. So all the different changes that might be coming from the state level, and just in society in general. And so being able to connect our educators to each other, and then innovating our instruction, keeping up with all the technology and things that are happening all around us. So thank you, ladies, for joining me today in this debrief, and for all of those watching or listening. Mark your calendars for next June 2026. We will be hosting our second MOCIS conference in Kansas City. And the best way to stay up to date with those announcements would be to join our newsletter or to listen to our podcast, Transform Ed with Step Up. So thanks, everybody, and we will see you next time.